All right, ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, he's and she's, ups and downs, lefts and rights, everybody who doesn't identify on the traditional spectrum. But if you have a heart and soul to receive what I'm sharing with you today, welcome. Thank you for showing up to section one of, I believe it's five, but I guess we'll figure that out as we go along, of No Land for Good Men. I understand people's attention spans aren't that long and people's um, trigger ability, if that's a word, is very short. So I want to make sure that I keep on reinforcing this is not exclusively to do with only prioritizing or focusing on men's issues, but this is about how patriarchy as a whole and patriarchal psychosis, when not allowed to be audited and cultivated and truly cared for with a sense of consciousness and for the sake of the community, can be very self-destructive. And that is a process that the Western world is about to, I was going to say attempting to, but truly is, it's forcing itself through right now. And what can we do as conscious people to see that as a whole and understand that objective process happening, but still be able to implement and invest ourselves as individual people in our unique experiences and specific environments to make the best impact that we can for what we have the opportunity to control? Because for so many of us, it truly is so little. But just having this awareness puts you in a position to know that there is backing behind the decisions you make in a world that is very, very quickly changing and where a lot of widely held beliefs that were once known as facts are going to shift and people are going to be lost in understanding because they've just been so fortunate to depend on what the mainstream intellect or what the mainstream accepted ideological systems were, not knowing that those were just widely held belief systems that were allowed to ingrain themselves for so many generations. We believed them to be the facts that we know them as today. But what happens when the whole entire infrastructure of that old world is crumbling and the new earth, the new energy that is coming to earth is asking for more conscious, more intentional, more awareness? When we've been running away from that intelligence and running directly into ignorance to protect our own egos for centuries, who makes it through that phase? Who's ready to even face that phase? What kind of world are we going to see crumble, and what kind of world and how long will we have to wait to see a world rebuild itself on the back end of that? Will we even be around for that? Just kind of questions I want to present as we get into not only a new year, but a new presidency, a new perspective of the Western world. As we are all, it doesn't matter what political side you are on of the spectrum, everybody understands that something has to crash or something has to be purged before we can move on to the future that everybody knows is inevitable. So, how will we address that? And how will we address that now, knowing what we do know and what I'm going to share with you? Hopefully, that's good enough for the intro. If you want, you want to check out that logo behind me, Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls shop. Check out some merch. We got some really, really dope shirts on there. Shirts and hoodies, and I'm not gonna do hats. I don't know, maybe soon. I'll get some stickers out to you guys. One of you people has to get my shit tattooed, and if you don't, then I just won't feel like you're committed enough. Before I get too crazy, start telling you guys to do things that are gonna make me seem like a cult leader. Let's get into this. And let's give you the knowledge that you guys came here for. Okay. This is very, I honestly was going to throw this off the list and not include this. Um, but I've decided that I'm going to include it anyway, simply because before I'm speaking to everybody in the whole entire world, I'm speaking to my people, like my melanated people that are so rejected and abandoned from the mainstream culture of like acceptance and appreciation. I'm letting us know of our own spirituality, of the complexity and the really the infinite nature of our spirituality outside of the very, very, very narrow box that we've been forced into as a means of incubating us in the psychosis of our oppressor, but also being able to put us into a box so small that we are exploited for value that we create beyond our knowing and beyond our belief, but keeping ourselves in our own chains. Almost in that sense that Kanye was saying when he said that slavery seems like a choice. There's a whole conversation that needs to be had behind that. And he took a lot of rap for that, which is crazy. Kudos to Kanye. But we what I'll get into in this section of the lecture series that I have going here is that the oppressor cannot continue to oppress you generation after generation after generation after using the same tactics. The only means to prolong or perpetuate the oppression in a means that the oppressor isn't the only one that can be had the finger pointed at them is by getting you to participate in the oppression, to fetishize your own suffering and slavery to the point where you feel like not only you deserve to be enslaved, but you deserve the suffering that comes with it. And you deserve to be so abandoned of appreciating your authentic nature and living in alignment to who you truly are. Even if accessing that would solve 99 of the 100 problems that you have in your life, knowing that the other one is just being responsible for who you are. So when I'm speaking to my people, I don't, and I don't want to discourage people from freedom of religion or believing what they believe, because I understand what you believe in allows you a lot of comfort and peace in this very confusing reality that we live in. So I'm gonna give my respects to everybody to appreciate what they appreciate and to believe in what gives them the greatest amount of self-acceptance. But for my people, for my melanated African people, Black people anywhere on planet Earth, I'm telling you right now, we are born out of a Black woman. Like, if you could fundamentally, if you can't see that, then you have to be like non-human, because every human being that's living in existence has been born out of a womb. I'll argue, I'm telling you, bro, I'll die on that hill. Every single human being that's ever been born on planet Earth is born out of a womb. And because I'm not trying too much to get into the semantics of that conversation, because there's so many identity wars you could have there, I want us to really sit back and understand before I get into stating the systems of oppression and why they are so hyper masculine, so hyper patriarchal, and so pushed off and abandoning of the feminine. We have to explain, why are we so rejecting of the feminine if it is not what we are being told it is, or what we are being indoctrinated to believe that it is. Now, I believe this hypermasculine patriarchal cult, you can even call it a religious cult, that has dominated the world, monopolized religion, monopolized community organization, monopolized economic ownership and development. That is only one polarized aspect of our humanity. And that's the aspect of our humanity that is not being held accountable. But when held accountable and when given clear purpose and supported in that purpose with intention, that can be a very, very, very powerful aspect of our humanity as a whole. But when gone, allowed to grow, and really not even grow, but to fester without any kind of responsibility, any kind of true intention, any kind of true purpose, they're wreaking havoc on the people of this world that are probably smaller and weaker and more vulnerable than them, rather than taking the strength and the power and the domineering strength that they do have to utilize that to serve the people who are weaker than and less than them on this same planet that we live on. Because regardless of how much you hate an other person for their identity, we as human beings have to share Earth together. It doesn't matter how many costumes you wear, how many families you participate in, how many communities you're a part of. We as human beings fundamentally are not even the priority, like the prime species on this planet. One, and two, how is our destruction of each other and hatred towards each other stopping the rest of the world from being able to function how it does? But again, these are conversations that we're going to have as we move into the the near future, and the chunk of this lecture gets out, because I understand there's so many concepts that we have to dig discussions on. But I think this might be the final important aspect of this specific slide here. And I know one thing I'll tell you right now is, I know it may seem like I'm not digging into every single aspect of these slides. One, because there's about a million conversations that still have to be had about every single one of these slides. I'm just attempting to present you what is most applicable to the conversation that I'm presenting, which is specifically patriarchal psychosis and how it's like a parasite, almost like a spiritual parasite, can take apart each member of the community from each other, delude them in their own psychosis, whether it's to serve themselves or to serve beyond themselves and abandon themselves, and then destroy any chance of us creating a community worth living in and creating a culture worth handing down to generations that exist beyond us. But I have to get all the way back into like the philosophical, spiritual, historical background of it first. And I hope you guys can appreciate me taking the time to go back there and then bringing you back to how this applies to the reality we live in now, rather than just telling you a bunch of blah, 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 woo, woo, and hoping that you believe me because you don't do any research of your own. But the main aspect that I want us to hold from this as it pertains to the destruction of what I believe is natural or holistic human life, and that is following colonization, wherever it has happened. There is an external. I have a course coming out called the Self-Concept Series, and in that course, I provide a theory that says that there is 6 points that are necessary for every human being to take responsibility of in their own life to be a fully functioning or self-sufficient human in community. Now, there are 3 of those aspects exist beyond us, like beyond the self. One of which is family or your network, your support system, or we can just call that your connections. The second one is your ritual or spiritual community. So who you share beliefs and meaning with, and then who you kind of derive your sense of self from, the community that helps you do that, versus the relationships that you have. And then the third one is the economy, like this, the economics of the community and how you contribute to that in relation to your purpose. All of that is outside of yourself, okay? Now, the 3 that are inside of yourself are your soul, your mind, and your body. But that is purely only accessible through self-awareness and the process of developing a relationship to the self, an authentic one to the self, be able to see the darkness in the self, to be able to see the light in the self, and to be able to see the aspects of society that society won't appreciate and give light to those, give love to those, and still be able to grow who you fully are while being able to share what does apply to your community or to the society outside of you. We live in a world that is built on the fetishization of fear. It's not the love of fear, or I don't know how people say, like people say like the love of fear, like fear of God or something. It's the fetishization of fear for the sake of deeply rooted self-rejection. One who knows doesn't need to believe, and one who believes only believes because they don't know. And there's the confidence that comes from knowing is so much difference than the confidence that comes from, if there is any confidence that comes from believing, because believing, you're only putting one foot in, you're only putting one foot in the basket or one egg in the basket, attempting to wait for more signs or attempting to align your feelings, even rather than experiences, your feelings with what is being communicated to you, rather than knowing what you know and being able to, with 2 feet in, believe in the decisions that you make beyond that. So as this all pertains to self-rejection, the whole entire point of in a spiritual sense, when you go to somebody else's country or you go to somebody else's region, and the goal is to take their natural resources to profit for yourself, to colonize their land, loot everything that comes out of there, um, and then say that this is your home now, and these people who lived there before you don't deserve to be there. You have to get the people who were there before and know the reality that was before that colonization process. You have to get them to reject themselves and their truth, and then be so lacking in their real world, they grow dependent on the systems that you provide them for salvation and sustenance. Okay? This is the main part that I'm trying to get to with this. And I know we were kind of discussing a lot of stuff here, but the main aspect I'm trying to get to, and genuinely the most fundamental spiritual aspect of this whole entire lecture series is there is a monopoly on traditional spirituality, and especially in the Western world. And you can tell because the leading forces in the industry of spirituality run on fear and self-rejection for the sake of getting you to cling based on your beliefs and lack of knowing of self to the psychosis as a means of validating it further based on your belief in it, rather than you being able to prove with your life how real this psychosis is. We'll describe this in the next clip here, but again, think here. I'm going to come to your land and destroy everything that's around here. One, as a means of making it a better home for all of us, which is really just a better home for myself. I'm going to indoctrinate you with beliefs that make you feel like you are lesser than, whether it's because you're Black or whether it's because you're a woman or because you're a marginalized person. I'm going to make you feel lesser than, and know that the only way you can ever be able to accept yourself genuinely is how? Is by us accepting you. But how are you going to get us to accept you? These new masters of your reality, how are you going to get them to accept you? Oh, fully reject yourself and play our game of society. Live your relationships how we run our relationships. Reject yourself in all the ways that we reject ourselves. Reject yourself in the way that we want you to reject yourself as well, too. Work in the same slave level conditions that we work in. It's continue to reject who you are. Because if who you are is not something that supports this society that we're creating, that's a sign from the devil, and we're going to have to shut that down. Or you have mental health issues, we're going to have to shut that down. And everybody else we're going to have clinging on to this system, mind you, a system that doesn't reciprocate or compensate them properly on purpose, because if it did, then people would be able to decide whether or not this system was serving them in their well-being, and then be able to get up and leave if it didn't, and then go negotiate with another system that did. But if this system keeps you lacking, keeps you starving on the hamster wheel, then your whole entire identity becomes about not even living. It becomes about surviving in a system where other people get to live. And how are they living? They're living really well off of your inability to have access to that same life. But they convince you that, oh, look at how hard you're working. Look at your American grind. Look at your hustle. Look how great you are for working 24-hour shifts, and you have a family of 6 you're taking care of. Like, amazing, huh? Amazing, huh? Most of them people that be owning the businesses you work for have never worked ever. And I'm telling you, they be getting the titles of CEO, of executive this, CTO, all that stuff. They don't do anything. Legacy students through college, went to private school from K through 12, literally had every single internship and job handed to them, but they own you. And you're never going to have, it doesn't matter how many years you work, it doesn't matter how many extra hours you put in, you're never going to have access to those levels of executive authority or power because you're not in the group. And this is why I'm asking us, especially my people, to look beyond the systems that we've been given for our spirituality, for our political organization, for our social culture, for our economic development and well-being, and say, who are we beyond the what our master who once saw us as an animal, who are we beyond what he thinks we are? And how is not pursuing that intellect or pursuing that insight, how is abandoning that furthering or reducing our ability to truly see and tap into our potential, and then maybe live in a world on the other side of accessing that for our benefit, rather than constantly accessing our potential for the sake of exploiting us, destroying our culture, and then serving other people's realities and kingdoms. Because you can only sell so many dreams until all the diamonds have gone out of Africa and are in Europe. And we're asking, how did all these diamonds come from Africa and get to Europe? And the only thing that you returned to Africa is your religion. And the savior of that religion doesn't even look like the people that you've given the religion to. It's almost like something inside me wants me to think like it's almost so much common sense that they want you to think that it's so right in front of your face that it can't be that you have to just believe whatever the hell they tell you. Even though what they're telling you, it's so many leaps and bounds beyond reality in fiction, in nothing, just like handed over. Well, nobody questioned this long enough for us to think this is a fact. I might make a podcast on this specific, but there's a war on intellectual people. There's a war on intellectual people going on. And I'm telling you, like, if you're smart and you're not doing some shit like this, bro, you're probably going insane or you're probably addicted to drugs. I'm just being honest with you, gang. Like, this this reality is only for those who are just purely desensitized to humanity, purely desensitized to the fact that other human beings exist, bro. And other human beings, like with other cultures and other religions and other like ways of organizing themselves, exist. And like we can live in a world where there's so many different types of people who exist differently, but that's like we support each other in that rather than one person thinking that they're the only person who's right. And then every single person needs to have their legs chopped off because they don't believe in that same psychosis. As if that person wasn't the visitor, which we'll get into right here. But I want to make sure first that we've concluded this here. Yeah. But before we go into the next slide, just know for this goes for anybody. This goes for any group of people, any group of colonized people. I'm not saying I know what your spiritual practice is or what your religion is or what your ancestors have in store for you. The only thing I know is what mine have for me and my people. And I don't even know who my people are or where I come from because I'm black sheep on my journey. So I'm figuring everything out as I go. But I'm telling you, this is the individualized spirituality, your mind, body, and your soul, your responsibility, the only thing that you can control in this life. You have to decide to sacrifice giving up responsibility of that to a community, like a real world conscious community, or a corporation like the United States of America that disguises itself as a country, which is really just a profit-based system. So you give yourself, you not even give yourself, the children, we'll call it, are raised by the community, and it's the community's responsibility or the corporation's responsibility to decide what they fill those children with, what energy and what wisdom and what knowledge they fill those children with, because they are literally cultivating the next generations of this society. And because this happened, which I'll get to in a second, these people saw that there was already working systems of communities, people, and spirituality, divine spirituality. And this I say is divine spirituality because it's just the everything that is, all that we are connected to, and we are all just fractal expressions of it at random points in time. But these people came in and said, you know what? Too much diversity. We're afraid of everybody who doesn't look like us. Too much diversity, too much other, too much nastiness, too much healthy stuff, too much clean stuff, too much we care about the earth and the people, and we don't care about profit-based incentives and war and making machines that do nothing but terrorize human beings. So we're going to just jump in here and we're going to dominate society, your economy, your politics, your culture. We're going to dominate everything. And we're going to go and commit a bunch of wars and only engage with other people who are willing to engage in wars because we know they are just as terroristic and villainous as us. So we're not the only ones that are doing the war stuff. We're just doing the war stuff just like everybody else is. And then whoever wins the war stuff is the winner. And we're just going to accept them rather than saying, oh my goodness, even that doesn't need to happen. Even the war stuff doesn't need to happen. That's a sign of people who don't understand that there is abundance for everybody. And the earth is like a Rubik's Cube needing to be understood so we can allocate and grow and cultivate resources and communities effectively on a global market. But it's this grand race to like chase global monopolization or global domination without realizing you can, forget me, you can dominate the globe by simply being of service to so many different types and kinds of people that they have to share the value that you give them with their people. And they end up being an arm into their communities for you because of the service that you provide them in a land that has not been able to show marginalized people, especially different people, any kind of humanity ever since it's been conceived in 1770, whatever, fucking six. So let's get into this next part here. But specifically describing this, think about, and don't think about this part of the triangle not being included. Think about this part of the triangle actually being community, and then the second colonization happened. It turned into the corporation country model. And that's why I say here, alien invasion of planet Earth, it already happened. And I made this like a year and a half ago, I'm pretty sure. So that's pretty interesting. Like, never procrastinate on your dreams, bro. You need to get them out as soon as possible, bro. You'll find organization later. But I say that the alien invasion already happened, and we're being convinced to believe that it still has yet to happen. Because think about how cunning that is. If you are the different people, like you are the alien that is to be afraid of, if we knew that you were that, we would just be fighting you the whole time, right? But the problem is, if we think that you are protecting us from the alien that we are supposed to be afraid of, then that means we're going to cling onto you and whatever you tell us because we believe so much. So not only are you this mighty force that's going to protect and care for us, but also you're going to defend us from these aliens we're supposed to be afraid of, as if we aren't already so readily valid in being afraid of you. But you just have to convince enough people to not to think that the people who are being punished are deserving of their punishment. You got to convince the people who are being punished. Did I say that are being punished are deserving of their punishment? And then not only that, but the people who are just like bystanders hanging around halfway through are desensitized enough to allow it to happen. And then the powers that be understand. And mind you, this is a sick part of the game too. Even the people at the top of the game, and this is what was exposed with the Diddy situation, even at the top of the game, there is no community there either. Every single individual brand and business and person is working for their own individual incentive and their own priorities. So it's like Let the people at the bottom of society get punished and make them believe they're deserving of that. Make the people above them, just above them, be so afraid of being punished down there because they believe they'll be deserving of that punishment and not deserving of any care and humanity. And then allow the people at the top of the system to think, oh, this is just how it works. Like we just punish everybody for existing because they're poor or something. And then that literally that overindulgence into this excess of power is animalistic power that is able to be accessed in these kinds of human systems that we've created. Even then, when you start doing something that breaks a law or you do something that goes against what the collective agrees, then look at you. Then they start to punish you and start to tear you down from there too. And I'm not saying anything that Diddy did was right. I think Diddy is one of the sickest human beings on planet Earth. But something I also want to state is that he is not the only one. Think about this. Was he the only person in attendance to his parties? Was he the only person in attendance to his parties? Think about this. What about that party that it was $1 million a ticket to get in? How many of us everyday people were going to get into the party like that? I'll wait. I'm not even trying to make this about Diddy. I just watched a documentary from FD Signifier on YouTube, if you see him, about Diddy like yesterday. And I thought it was super amazing. But I really want you guys to sit here and see these people have already dominated the society, and we are clinging to believing everything they're telling us simply because we lack grounding in reality, in any reality other than one where they give us complete salvation and we are completely desperate for that salvation. This is, and these little emotions, fear, ignorance, shame, guilt, trauma, lust even. I'd be a horny bastard, but I understand lust is one of them, and worry. These are all emotional parasites and emotional diseases, energetic diseases that are used to cling human beings into dependence onto this system that does nothing for so many of us. So it's not only about the alien coming in and invading, it's about the alien coming in, invading, forcing us like a parasite to grow codependent onto their system while they feed and grow themselves like a parasite grows itself off of the host. And then we start to develop even more illnesses and diseases off of our inability to be apart from this system and be grounded in a reality that exists beyond this. But again, let's go back to this. Forget me. Oh, let's go back to this. They dominate society. They come in to destroy your community. And then not only do they destroy your community and say, we're going to loot and then leave you to pick it up, because if you destroy somebody's community and you let them live and like grow beyond that, then they're going to turn into you probably one of your worst enemies on planet Earth, because they've been raised not only with the anger, but the pain and the passion against you since their youth, making it the one thing that matured them into their adulthood. So that's something you can't have. That's just like a testament of war. I don't know how many of you guys are keen on that stuff, but destroy their whole entire community, leave them so desperate and lacking that they end up growing to be codependent on the systems that you offer them, which is your new society. And then you punish everybody with isolation or excommunication back to this real self-rejected, self-abandoned, community-abandoned self, and create a FOMO for this community that you're creating, a fear of missing out for this community, and then not knowing these people who are clinging on to the compensation you're giving them after stealing their truth, you're just feeding them lies, which is you're blocking them from their truth and the true truth of reality, which you know, for the sake of growing codependent in the same way that we are all codependent to this source or creator onto the owners of the society or the colonizers of society. And that also the reason why I had to make this like little thing around Earth, like this wrap around Earth, is because I do believe that there is other types of like genuine like alien species, not just like alien human like life. I'm talking like genuine alien species that exist readily in the universe. But you have to sit here and think. One, we are so ignorant and so afraid and so I'm talking about to other human beings for the sake of skin color, gender, sexuality. We hate other human beings for those minuscule attributes. Very, very minute, like for not even minuscule. It's just like who we are at the end of the day. So we hate human beings for being who they are because we don't want to accept that's who human beings can be. And we want to sit here and talk about letting green little flopping aliens with giant eyes come to Earth and have actual communication with them. Are you kidding me? And that all leads back to the same, these energetic parasites that are fed to us as a means of clinging on to this system that the colonizer feeds us to grow his parasite into a genuine community or a genuine culture. So we the alien invasion already happened. And anybody who wakes up to this is deemed crazy or psychotic or something, or just forced, given some kind of cancelable or rejectable title that forces them to gain their validation back by rejecting themselves fully and then submitting back to the system. Nice little point to add on here. The highest paying job on earth is selling external salvation to a born sinner, preventing them from the existential fears of external damnation and or total social rejection exclusion. And wasn't I just talking about that? Oh, whoa, 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 my bad, my bad, my bad. Wasn't I just talking about if they came in and destroyed your whole entire community, but the only way to live is depending on these people who came in and destroyed everything because they're the only people that have anything. Uh, and if you don't depend on them, what are you going to do? Die? Like, what are you going to do? Run away? You could try, but like they own everything. And they've created systems that reproduce their kind for the sake of owning and policing you, and then created laws and legislation that say that it's okay to not call you a human being or not give you human protections. And it's just little things that happen generation after generation after generation. And it's all off the back of what? Fear, ignorance, shame, guilt, the hatred of other human beings. And we're sitting here talking about aliens. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Nobody is talking. We've not, human beings are not ready for aliens if you're still racist. You're not ready for human beings if you're still homophobic. You're not ready for human beings if you're still misogynistic. You're not ready for aliens if you still hate human beings. Thank you. We'll get on to the next part. Now, I call these like, and I don't mean to call these people out, bro, because they don't do me no harm other than just like try to solicit me religion every time I see them. But I say like the Mormons are the best marketing team on planet Earth. And if I can find a way to align my business interest with like those like young Mormon people who be out there selling their religion, like I genuinely would. And that dude, John Smith or whoever wrote that book, is the smartest dude on planet Earth. Just like because he basically created the initial network marketing cult scheme of the Western world next to like Scientology. Um, but it's very, very, very business transactional. Take away what the people really need, their truth and their soul, and then give them conditional compensation, which is never going to fulfill them in the same way that having what they had did for the sake of being able to exploit them until they die or they are not of use any longer. And whoever can get somebody to buy a belief or a dream so hard that they act as if they know that is a fact, you will be compensated greater than God on this planet. I promise you, you will be compensated greater than whatever God you believe in. Okay. Now we can get into, and again, these are all like there's so much stuff going into all of these. We don't even have to get too much into it other than the fact that it's like this is exactly what I was describing. You cannot just go into a system and destroy it and expect that system to just not like to turn into one that serves you and serves you annually or serves you regularly. You have to go into the system or the community, destroy the community for what it is. And this is why we do things like war, because doing something like war is a lot easier than just going into somebody's land and just looting the hell out of all of it. Because then you have to do all these things like, oh, this is a mass theft of property. And then you have to go and argue with the government. But you could just say, we're not going to argue with the government. We're just going to destroy everybody who lives in that region and then take over everybody who lives in that region and then steal everything that they have access to and then call it war. And then if they can handle it, then we're going to call it a war. And if they can't, we're going to call it a genocide. That is the modern world. And I hope you guys are aware enough to see that. This war stuff does not need to happen. It's impatience, it's narcissism, it's sociopathy at the finest. Because it's a bunch of people in suits, bro, arguing about war games, but using real human bodies to do it, real artillery to do it, and then punishing real families, women, and children to do it at the same time, while all existing in these rooms, while being able to give each other trophies and awards and stars and hats that commemorate them as to how brave and strong they are for punishing the entire world for their own little sick, twisted mind games. So we're going to speak about, to dominate the collective spiritual awareness, you have to institute an organized religion that first gets the people to reject themselves internally so they can cling onto whatever reality you feed them externally. And then you feed them the salvation externally, whether it's through a society and like direct welfare and material, or through beliefs and, hey, believe this religion and you will be accepted. The next is you need to have a system that organizes the families and the structures that you want. And this, we have the male ego hierarchy, that is patriarchal rule. The only type of community that exists are families, which is the nuclear family system, which is perfect because you basically say if you're poor, you don't get to grow multi-generationally. Like it'll just be too expensive, too inaccessible, and too inconvenient to grow a multi-generational family because that is the only thing that's going to allow you to retain, build, and expand wealth and your personal empire. But you're poor or you're a black, like whatever the marginalized term was, like you're a poor, so you don't deserve that. So you can believe this BS that we're doing here. And because you men are so lonely, how about we guarantee you access to a woman? Something that's never been done before in human history. We guarantee you access to a woman. And even better, she can't leave. So we create a system that not only is fundamentally rooted in, hey, everybody's got to bootstrap it up themselves, but everybody at the top of the system, not only are they deriving all of their sustenance from exploiting the community of poors beneath them, but also they are working in multi-generational, multi-extended, interconnected family networks and professional networks and systems that would never, ever, ever allow any of them to be individual. I don't care if you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs. Everybody has peers, everybody has network, everybody has systems, everybody has accommodations. That's the only reason why they're successful. And for a majority of them, they guarantee that accommodation by exploiting more poors, not by actually allocating or reallocating the wealth that they're hoarding and don't know how to spend properly. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, you guys might hate me for this. Patriarchy is for the poors. For the men, it puts you in a psychosis, whether it's the entitlement psychosis that makes you think that you need to own women and children, or makes you think that everybody in this world needs to serve you for the sake of being able to own a house and have a job. For women, it destroys them by forcing them innately to reject the self. And in rejecting the self, seeking the validation of the external through the male, through the patriarchal psychosis induced male, which does not know how to appreciate. Well, fundamentally, the man does not know how to know the woman because a man is not a woman. The woman can only know the woman as much as the woman can know a woman, and patriarchal psychosis does not allow the woman to know the woman in the fullness of what the woman can know the woman as. And that is inherently self-rejecting, and beyond that, self-harm. And then for the children, simply children are products to be owned for the sake of making the family shop look worthy of acceptance by society. That's all they are. Servants and products. And we want to sit here and talk about protect the kids, protect the kids. We don't care about the kids. We never did care about the kids. The only reason why we even call kids kids is because we can't find some term to call them to justify enslaving them to the same 9-to-5 system their parents are working for. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason teenager even came up. The only reason why teenager is even a thing is because of labor laws. Like, these people don't care about your kids. And if I can add another thing, yeah, the whole entire abortion situation, that is for the sake of producing more poor kids who will not be raised by their parents, who already can't afford to raise the kids they do have, for the sake of having more people to be exploited, more abandoned children to be exploited by, what is it? Oh, our economic system that doesn't know how to make any wealth ever since it went and stole somebody's entire country to build its foundation on. So maybe once you steal somebody's country, you steal everybody's culture, you steal other people's consciousness, you stop other people from accessing their consciousness, and you run systems of gambling and exploitation to make wealth rather than actual investment and cultivation. Maybe your economic system is bound to fail by means of debt or by means of just not being able to turn a profit. Or probably, if you're America, both. Because the only way you make money is by stealing labor or value. And then the second we have rules that get put up in place that say you can't steal, all the money that we had vanishes. The second we have a rule that gets put up and says, hey, you know what? That's a human being. That is not a slave. 30% of our economy is gone. And mind you, the only reason why we even run business in this egoic monstrosity that is the West is for the sake of making business owners and executives richer. Because again, it's all gambling. And if you want to argue with me on that, check out your economy. This is gambling on small businesses, because you understand, investing in a business is buying their products, buy their services, invest in their community, share their culture, give them organic awareness and outreach. You don't need to invest in Microsoft. If you're poor, why are you investing in Microsoft? What kind of return are you going to get on that? Oh, Microsoft is going to come up with the new iPhone, and you're gonna turn your $500, that $500 that took you 6 weeks to make, you're going to turn that into $500,000. You just got to wait on it. It's almost like the rich dude who's putting in $100,000 and is going to get a $750,000 return on his investment if he gets the gamble, or whatever the numbers are that are just exorbitantly higher than yours because you just don't have the capital to get the return. That's just what it is fundamentally. If you can't risk, you can't reward. And I'm really trying to, I was trying to be nice about it. But I understand there's a capitalism that works, but the capitalism that we're living under, bro, does not work, bro. The capitalism that is a spawn of colonization, these people have never provided value. The only thing they've been able to compensate people with that they've stolen from is by buying into their religion. Or at least having those people be so desperate, they have to buy or cling on to whatever kind of crumb sustenance is given by the oppressive class. But that's never going to last. because you stole somebody's ability to care for themselves and their community, which was natural and authentic to them for the sake of making a profit, which is only exist in your reality, which is a game that you made up on a planet that everybody has to exist on, whether they know of your psychosis in your society or not. So we're not going to sit here and act like these three systems right here aren't just pimping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth everybody. And the only person, the only way that people can even build communities, which is very cult-like, the only way people can even build communities is out of fear, out of lack, out of struggle. It's not out of, I know myself enough to know what kind of relationships I need to be able to pursue. I know myself and my purpose enough. I know what kind of routines and habits I need to have. I know when I care for myself so much, I know what responsibility I need to take to be the person that I say I am and to be the person that I need to be for my circumstances. This is all reject the self, reject the self, reject, abandon the self for the sake of being completely codependent onto whoever serves you salvation. Mind you, if you're already desperate for that salvation outside of you, even if you did on the other side of getting that access your gifts, now all of your gifts are at the mercy of whoever's providing you that salvation. And if it's not yourself, it's probably going to be somebody who doesn't have your best interest at heart. Because if they did, then they'd spend more time giving you your power back and putting it back into your hands than telling you how afraid you are or you should be of the power that you have in your hands for the sake of using it for themselves and their own interest. All right. How many more we got of these? Oh, damn. All right. We got a handful of these. We got a handful of these. We got time, though. All right. As you, and this is very, very important. I'm glad that we're talking on this right now. Because this is one of the most important aspects. The spiritual aspect of this whole entire, forgive me, I'm not lost. I'm just trying to find out what words I want to say to describe this because it really isn't too much. The reason why I titled this Hell is Not Real is because hell and the perception of it, or at least your ability to perceive it and your fear of it, is a very, very, very great tactic as a means of owning your entire existence, not only from the outside of you and getting you to be ashamed of you for how you express yourself and how you accept yourself, but also the perception of it gets you to create your own inner critic that makes you punish yourself and makes you afraid of yourself and makes you abandon yourself for being a human being rather than pursue inquiry or knowledge of self as a means of further accepting yourself and then being able to express yourself more authentically or more aligned with who you really are, rather than needing to cling onto and depend on these masks that we wear as a means of gaining this external validation in society that everybody thinks is going to be so much more rewarding than being able to actually accept yourself. So, not to get too into this here, because a lot of these, and again, if these are videos you want just one more, just like individual independent videos on, I'll definitely do them. And a handful of these I've already done on my YouTube channel. But again, we're only getting into these graphics as they apply to this series that we're on, because we could spend all day talking about all of these. But it's important for the entire duration of the time that you are a human being and every generation beyond you. You, your children, your children's children, everybody is filled to the gills with fear from the second that they're born. You are under this mass surveillance of whoever it is, whether it's Big Brother, it's God, it's technology. You're under this mass surveillance because you did something wrong before you were even born. And now you deserve to be under mass surveillance. And you deserve to be afraid of being anything that is not accepted by that mass surveillance. And then in being so afraid of yourself and your own darkness or needing to reject that for the sake of wanting to be accepted, you never access your truth because you're never accessing the fullness of who you are. You're never fundamentally saying, hey, you know what? My light and my dark aren't two opposing forces trying to compete against each other for like expression in this life. They are two twins, literally, seeking a relationship with each other to understand who I am as a consequence of my relationship with what I accept and what I reject, or who I believe I am and who I believe I'm not. And if you're never accessing your truth, again, this goes back to knowing versus belief. If you're never accessing your truth and knowing who you are constantly going to be like drowning in these tides of whatever people tell you or the validation that's being thrown at you, which only aligns with protecting your feelings because it's going to be in relation to what you want to believe rather than help you keep pushing on what you already know is true and help you every time an opportunity comes for it to help you reject what you know, you can say, no, 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 I choose this knowing because this is who I am in spite of my circumstances. But again, you don't know who you are. You don't know for a fact who you are. And again, I'm not saying like you just know yourself and then for the rest of your life, you're going to know who you are. But I'm saying when you don't have that sense of acceptance so deep that it's almost like you know who you are more than you believe in who you are, then people can tell you anything because at the end of the day, all we're doing externally seeking validation is for that self-acceptance. But if we don't know that's what we're seeking for, then we're going to keep on doing things for the get off that is the validation. And that's how you can, if you're a spiritual cult, you can colonize that just so perfectly, bro. Get people to hate themselves and everything that is this human life and humanity and abandon taking responsibility for it whatsoever. And then you give them their salvation. You give them their meaning. You give them their purpose. And if it's basic, then shit, bro, you can colonize the whole world with that. But the reason why I hate it is because you get people who don't even care about their lives or the spirituality or their religion. Like it's just a bunch of people who don't want to be looked at as negative people or bad people, and a bunch of people who don't take responsibility for their own flaws, meaning that they're just a part of the community so they can hide within it rather than actually be a part of contributing to it. A little side note here, a little bottom note here, and we already made this discussion because you know how I like to discuss 3 slides in one slide and then end up rolling into those slides right afterwards. So the the church being the only sense, and this is not me going against anybody's religion, but the church being the main place for community and almost like the monopolization of community and cultural awareness or regulation is that yeah, yeah, you can have free speech or and yeah, you can have freedom of religion in your culture, but when it's just so readily acceptable for so many people to or forgive me, honestly, like I'm not even gonna hide and say it anymore. We're living in a Christian nationalist nation, and they've just like been trying to get it to that point without saying like, "Hey, we're turning this into a monarchy, like an oligarchical monarchy." Um, the church becoming the first and last resort for salvation is a means of saying, "Hey, you know what? The powers that be are going to sell you this. Like you are going to have to fully believe in this as your salvation, even if the powers that be and rich people are acting a fool and doing degenerate stuff and doing horrible stuff on planet Earth. If they are in a position to where they are aligned with the church, you're going to have to just believe them." I don't know if I'm saying this properly or not, but I just want to, I know I might just keep running myself in circles here and I don't want to do that because we have a handful more slides to get into. When everybody is waiting on God to save them, nobody is actually believing in themselves enough to know that they can be of service to the community outside of them. So people aren't pursuing a purpose as a means of serving people. People aren't developing a sense of identity as a means of being a part of a community. People aren't engaging in relationships as a means of building and cultivating that community and culture. Everybody is just waiting to just feel rejected enough by society to where they need this salvation. Or there's people who just reject themselves enough just generationally, and then they just go into it and then become marketers of this religion. And that's the tough shit, bro, especially for my black people, especially for Americans and marginalized people. This becomes like a religious funnel. And we all just get sucked up into like, we don't have any unique communities. We don't have any unique cultures. We don't have anything because all of those are destroyed for the sake of protecting the fear of the people who exist in the most widely mainstream accepted religion, which also happens to not want to address patriarchy, misogyny, or like white supremacy. So understand that when we all reject ourselves and our truth for the sake of clinging on to the truth and the psychosis that the master throws us, we are not perceiving ourselves in a way that we can truly love and appreciate ourselves because our master never did. They're giving us a way to view ourselves in the way that they view us, and they view us out of hatred and pain and fear and anger. So we will view ourselves and each other in that same way, rather than being able to view ourselves through an external conscious development, like conscious awareness. So, next slide. And this also constitutes that, or plays into the part that communities will not exist or cannot exist how they should. Everyone becomes when this is the foundation for our awareness of community and collective, and especially like how we regulate resources and hand out salvation in community. We don't feel, again, I just said this in the last slide, we don't feel as if everybody in this community is worthy of giving some kind of value that can contribute to the collective that helps everybody gets their needs met or their needs served. We just all think that we are all here for the sake of being served by this system, whether it's this government, whether it's this religion, whether it's this economic opportunity, but we are all here because we share the same identity, whether it's because we are all white or we are all poor. Like we all need the same service or we all want to be looked at the same way. But those types of communities will never last because they're built off of individual people with different needs going to the same environment for the sake of meeting that need. But because the community was built off of everybody needing to have a need met individually, rather than people going to a community that was going to include everyone for the sake of meeting the needs of everybody, even if everybody would have to wait their turn to have that, people in this group are going to fight and realize, hey, we aren't as alike or a part of each other as we thought we were. Because your needs are different than my needs, and I need my needs met faster than you need your needs met. And you aren't as deserving of having your needs met as I am. And I should be up further in line, or I should be closer to the master. I should be closer to salvation. I should have more access to. And then this starts tearing itself up. Well, that all that infighting is just creating more energy and more deluded souls who need salvation from that same master. And the master, as long as he can just regulate that environment, all these people are destroying each other for the sake of clinging to the salvation of that master more than realizing this is toxic for all of us. And fundamentally, if we all got, especially these internet cults, if we all were put into a room together and given a project to work on, we wouldn't be able to get anything done. Why? Maybe because we don't even know if we're compatible enough to meet a need, to meet a goal together. We're all just here because we all knew we needed to get that, or we're all just here because we're so afraid of other different expressions of people. We're just next to each other now. And now we don't realize we're so afraid And so lack of knowing of ourselves and what we can give to the world, to our community, we fail to see the demon in our own house. But this collective, again, I'll reinforce, those of us, these people in here know themselves. They know what value they can provide. And more than that, they know who they are and how they can be accommodated. So by putting my needs and what I can give up at the forefront, we're going to organize people on how they can be utilized to best create a collective or a system that can serve the goal or that can meet the goal. And in meeting the goal, the consequence of meeting the goal is meeting everybody's needs on the back of that. While through the duration of meeting that goal, we can also serve and accommodate people uniquely to who they are in the group as it pertains to helping them be a part of cultivating this goal. Uh-oh. Now let me see how much we have left. No, that's not bad. No, that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay. Okay. We're gonna get into this. I'm pretty sure I actually explained this deeper in a later part. I'm pretty sure I explained this much deeper in a later part. I don't know if it's section 2 or 3, but I need you guys to understand that we as marginalized people in this is looking at what I've just described to you over the past couple of slides as that just is reality. Like that is the reality we live in, and we are now generations down the way of seeing that in real time. So how does that, forgive me? How does that play a role into our current social politics right now? You have two sides who think that they're fighting against each other, which are the white saviors and the white supremacists. And they think that they are fighting against each other to access acceptance of the throne, which is their white Jesus or whoever is like the white warlord, freaking Kratos that they believe in. And then beneath that, which is what they think the person who's supporting their illusions and their psychosis is this God at the top of the pyramid. They don't realize that what's really supporting their ability to not only have this psychosis, but to live in these societies are the fact that they're exploiting the actual reality of marginalized people that they hate to humanize. Because if they had to humanize us, then it's just one more aspect that they're taking away from the God that they said is here to save all of us. Because they'd have to realize that all of us provide the sustenance for them. And again, this is not an attack on white people collectively. This is an attack on the psychosis that is white supremacy. And for anybody who is dumb enough to believe it. Because the same God that you believe in and you attribute all of your success and your glory and your victory to, it is just all the marginalized people you hate, just enmeshed and grouped up into one failed swoop identity that can manipulate people who think that the most divine creature on planet Earth is an average white dude who was born in Africa with like long blonde hair and blue eyes. Crazy. Crazy. It's, bro, and really, we don't even have to get too much into this. But the reason why I want us to really address the not only the white supremacy aspect of it all, but well, genuinely the white supremacy aspect of it all. The reason why I want us to get into that and to always recognize that is because until white people want to address the white supremacy aspect of it, nothing that they do in relation to humanizing or caring for marginalized people will be anything other than a means to serve their own identity. And if it's politically, it's to win that political game. And the only person they're playing that political game against is other white dudes. They're not they're using us to play their game to give themselves a sense of power and identity. So if they can't use us anymore by means of actually giving us human rights or actually advocating for us in the ways that we want, where will they get their power from? Then we'll get our power from ourselves. And they won't get their power from us anymore. They will actually have to find something that they actually care about and genuinely want to contribute to get their power from. And it's nothing but their own ego. The savior complex is a narcissistic, covert narcissistic parasite. People who cannot save themselves, people who've been rejected in their own system, who haven't even gotten their own humanity in their own system, saying they can take people who don't have humanity either and save them. As if they don't just co-opt all of our social justice movements to, again, serve their identity and then throw us away when the master really wants to start punching back. And then the superiority complex is just grandiose narcissism. It's just being stupid enough to believe like, oh yeah, we are this strong and mighty group of people because like they're blessed by some divine spirit rather than they terrorize the entire world and nobody holds them accountable because everybody's afraid of being punished by them as well. And again, this same, like, I'm not saying that the God you believe in isn't real, but I'm saying that everything that you attribute to, all the blessings that you attribute to this being are the marginalized people you exploit. You put enough people on just far enough in proximity from the real oppression, the real slavery, and the real exploitation. So they think they're closer to believing that it is the God that they worship in their churches rather than the slaves who are working in Congo or Sudan. And maybe this might have been a slide that could have gone a little bit earlier, but no, actually, no, I'm right about this. This is this is the internal psychosis that we're running here. This is the internal psychosis of America. And even actually, a final thing I want to add on here before I move on completely is that the liberal party, I'm starting to realize, if it's anything more than just pure covert narcissism of people who don't care about marginalized people, they just want political power by representing them. They're just a means of suppressing the intellectual marginalized person to get us to put our passion and our pain and our truth into their projects, which are all failed projects, as a means of suppressing us or getting us to hate our own ability to not be successful and then fall into the traditional conservative culture anyway. So really what I'm trying to tell you is that I don't even think a liberal party exists. I think there's two conservative parties, and the liberal party is just like the bastard version of the conservative party for the sake of rounding up all potential third party competitors. All right, that makes sense. So how are we going to create, how are we going to manufacture this system? How are we going to manufacture a system where we can say that human beings are not human beings and should be punished like non-human beings? They not like us, they not like us. But instead of like, they not like us, they culture vultures, we're going to say they not like us because they're not white. So wealthy white dudes. Who else? Wealthy white dudes own so much capital, they are deluded into believing that they are not only the chosen people, but they are deluded into believing that they are God. And this is a lot worse than thinking that you're the chosen people. They have so much access to capital and to the wealth of the world, they basically are God. They decide what goes, what comes, what lives, and what dies. So who are they but God, if you want to call it that? And I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying under capitalism, the owners of capital and the owners of damn near the most capital, which own time and regulation of society, they decide when the lights go on and when the lights go off. That is God. And also, they decide who gets to live off of when the lights come on and who gets to starve. So the earth doesn't discriminate. The earth says this is how many human beings are here. And the earth just says, if you can cultivate and care for and take responsibility for, I'll give you every opportunity to care for yourselves and to be self-sufficient. But our society says, if you aren't acceptable by society's standards, which we're making an impossible eligibility, you don't deserve to have access to the natural sustenance of human life or be a beneficiary of whatever is made by the same human beings in that society. So you're basically going to be in an open air prison for being rejected by our society. That is America. So the top group is supposed to sell, they're supposed to sell the average white dude the illusion that they're just like them. Like, hey, you can be rich just like us. You can be successful and get all the girls and have all the monies and to drink all the cool liquors on planet Earth. You just have to follow these rules. Mind you, these are rules they didn't follow because most of these rich dudes on the top of the system are Nepo babies, or they did a whole bunch of demonic stuff to get up there. And I'm not talking about like spiritual demonic. I'm talking about like financially, socially, just human demonic behavior. Or they were just picked and they got up there. So the system they're giving you is a faulty one. It's just like the people who become millionaires, or they're not even millionaires, they're just lying about that on the internet, on Instagram, and they sell you courses about how to become a millionaire. But the courses have nothing to do with any kind of money. And it's like some BS you probably could have gotten out of a YouTube video from like one of those 12-year-old freaking CS nerds. And you have to be aware enough to see the play. Ah, dang it. I think my light just died on me. My light don't let me no more. Whatever. I hope you guys can still see me. You guys can still see me? I am so sorry for that. Whatever. We're going to have to keep going. We're keep pushing. So these rich white men have to sell these average white dudes. And mind you, it ends up being average as men, period. Anyone who's willing to cling on to patriarchal psychosis. But they're sold the illusion, hey, get these things and you're going to be just like us, or we'll accept you. So you won't have to worry about not being like us because you're still poor at the end of the day. These people are the initial blocker for protecting the powerful and the wealthy. Because these people think, hey, you know what? You guys are all just loser liars who can't get access and who are just lazy. You guys just don't work hard enough. That's why you'll never have access. But we work hard enough. But they believe their merit and all that. It's all based on beliefs because they're close enough they're proximal to the master enough to hear the support and the belief that the master wants them to win. So they're willing to buy the bullet first. All they need is a house. All they need is a wife. All they need is a job, and they're going to be okay. All they need is a non-woke society, and they're going to be okay. That's not how that works. Not how that ever works. But they buy it, and they are on the front line of protecting this system. The average white dudes who won't even have access to this rich white dude society. They're just army men protecting it because they think they'll benefit. And then they have to create such a hating system of people. Like, this is the FOMO group, the fear of missing out. Everybody is now afraid of missing out of what these people have access to. So then other people who think they're smart enough start to reject themselves, hate themselves, and believe into the psychosis that is only for these people. And in believing their psychosis, they end up playing an additional role in going into our communities of marginalized people and sharing the psychosis to further destroy our communities, further destroy our people, further corrupt our culture, and further abandon our access to our own truth and our own divinity, which does not come from these people, because these people and everybody who buys into this triangle is being sold a dream as a means of being accepted into their society that they own and they regulate. It's like attempting to ask for human rights on Facebook or Instagram when it's just like Zuckerberg owns the platform. It doesn't matter. He decides what cars get to slide on the roads. And that's just what it is. And under this system of capitalism that we've allowed to really globalize the world, we've said the owners of capital get to be God. They get to decide what cars get to ride on the roads. They get to decide what human beings get to take from the plants and live off the earth. They get to decide everything because the whole entire reality is fundamentally being funded and orchestrated by these exorbitantly wealthy people. So we are at the mercy not only of their dreams, but of their desires. Even if their desires, or forgive me, I said that wrong. Even if our lifestyles and well-being as poor people are at the mercy of their desires. Mind you, nobody has ever told them no yet. And there's a reason why I put this bottom triangle, because there's the middle group is for the marginalized people who feel like they're not marginalized, and in doing so they can just work their way up through a series of like trials and tribulations to be accepted by the master class. But this bottom triangle is what everybody genuinely who's not in that top portion of the top triangle is afraid of. And it's being marginalized. It's being the marginalized that has like it puts a gold star on you and says, you are other, you are not like us, and you are deserving of the punishment that we have been told we came to this earth to deal on y'all, on you sick people. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Forgive me 1 second, gang. I'm trying to get my light loaded. But this system is just how we create armies of in groups to everybody believes the psychosis and everybody believes this is just how it's supposed to be. There's an in group who is right and everybody else is wrong. Not just they're wrong, everybody else is wrong. And if we can get enough people to believe into this in group psychosis as we can deal any kind of punishment we want to the people who don't make it in the in group. And even worse, the people who end up being directly involved in or in alignment with the out group. And the sad part is that there's people who are in these groups who are so deluded in this psychosis, enough so to believe that the people of their own kind are deserving of the abuse that their oppressor, our oppressor genuinely, places on all of us for the sake of just existing, not being like them. And another important aspect to get into here. Another important aspect to get into here. I know there's going to be a handful of people that want to sit here and disrespect me, calling me a racist because I'm willing to address white supremacy and you guys aren't. Well, you go ahead and take that and shove that up your. No, I'm playing. Because you might enjoy that. So I don't want you to enjoy this. One thing that I'm realizing here, right, is just like I said in that last slide, there's that socially accepted group. It's so few of y'all. Their only responsibility is to live lifestyles that are so intriguing that they get the rest of y'all who think you're in that in group to keep perpetuating the system, and not only perpetuating it for your own success, but punishing other people outside of your little rat race who pose a competition to the system or pose an opportunity to end the system for what it is. Now, I believe that we're seeing, if we wouldn't have to endure this type of stuff if white people were willing to accept, like, genuinely the amount of privilege that they have in existing as that in a world that has just recently given marginalized people, especially Black people, human rights and protections, which are probably going to get taken away over the next 5 years. But it's very, very, very important to address these things, especially this one right here, because every single time we have a political election, as a white person, your humanity isn't up on the table unless you have another comorbidity, which is like an additional marginalized identity, like you're gay or you're a woman or something, or like you're a single mom. But the reason why this little psychosis, the white privilege complex, is allowed to happen is because these people think, not only do they think that everybody has equal opportunity simply because they have equal opportunity to be accepted by this system, but just like I was saying in the last slide, they think that everybody else who isn't pursuing success in the same way that they are is just lazy or isn't like a functioning human being. That's why I've had to really step aside from the that's why I've really had to step aside from self-improvement culture and just like the general like new age spirituality space as a whole, to develop my own teachings and my own philosophies. Because like if you really sit here and think about it, it all leads back to the same exact systems that we're working under. All of this divergence from, like, attempt to remotivate marginalized people into buying into this system. Like all of this, once these people find out that they will never have the same success in these areas as if they just shut up and submit to this system up here, they'll just shut up and submit right back to this. I'll give you a couple of examples. Look at Fresh and Fit, two black dudes, one of which who's promoting Nazi ideology. How do we go from I'm going to help you guys get on dates and I'm going to help you guys go to the gym, to I hate women, to I am a Nazi? How do we go from that in 18 months? And again, you might say, well, if you're talking about black dudes, but you're saying white dudes, look right here, look right here, look right here. Self-hating, pick-me-seeking validation, neurotypicals, mass-populating society, and manufactured natural selection. It's these people think that they, through acceptance or validation, are also a part of this in-group here. They also think they're in there. Or how about these new age spiritualists that are in here purely in psychosis, out here saying, manifest your dream partner, take this love potion, get this $800 reading. I might be charging $800 for a reading in the future though, so don't be holding me against that. But specifically for these people who don't be offering nothing behind that $800. All for them to just go back to organized religion, just to punish all the people that they said that they were here to save and help because they're an alien creature from like the Lyrian constellation, and their children or their siblings to like the blue space cats. All that psychosis And all of that manipulating marginalized people and all of that selling dreams and all of that dissociating us from reality for the sake of them just going back to the same organized religion that their parents are probably a part of. Wow. Wow. So this is why I say like it's not even these people will tell you it's racist to address racism just for the sake of you not being able to see that they have nothing of any value to offer you other than maybe helping you get back to who you are and your own spirituality and tapping back into your own roots. Stop buying into these people. Stop buying into these people telling you, hey, you need to buy into our system that we built off of the backs, not even the backs, blood, sweat, and tears off of your people. And we didn't even compensate them at all. We just keep enslaving y'all as long as you're stupid enough to believe it. Stop believing them until they actually care to give to our people and our community, even if it means nothing for them. And maybe we'll stop having these people convincing us, hey, you know what? It isn't the fact that there's something wrong with society. There's something wrong with you. And you need to get better. You need to self-improvement. You need to spiritual healing. You need to self-reject and go to the bar. And I'm not saying going to the bar is self-rejecting. I love going to the bar and I love seeing beautiful women and I like having a couple of drinks in my system. But you need to hate yourself and then create what I should have said was you need to hate yourself and then create an identity to where you will never accept yourself because the only way you'll validate yourself is in the ways that reinforce your self-rejection. Just to end up walking back into a bleep bloop, back into a society that says, hey, we'll give you meaning, we'll give you purpose, we'll give you a sense of identity as long as you shut the fuck up. So I hope we got all of that. I think I said about like 10 minutes of talk just to get really that last 2.5 minutes out. Like it doesn't there's all these means, these opportunities of, hey, maybe this is what I was really trying to say. There's all these like identities that go within socially rejected and excluded and externalized. When isn't it kind of funny? Like, imagine if the point of that was so we could also create subspecies, like subcultures of this main spiritual salvation cult, subcultures that also go about recruiting new members, all, even though it doesn't seem like to our cult, just recruiting new different types of members who will all end up being so broken and lost and unaccommodated, they will have to depend on us at some point. Because even if they don't lose it, their leaders are going to lose it and they're going to end up running this community and this opportunity to be something other than what the master has set out for us. Because again, these are all communities led by the master's children who want to rebel from the master, but not because they want to liberate other people, especially the master's servants. It's simply for the sake of being the master in their own space to where they don't have to listen to a master. One major fundamental experience that this happened, pilgrims, I call them pirates, pilgrims leaving Europe and coming to America. There was no freedom, no liberation. It was simply, we want to be masters of something else. And that something else is better than us. And that something else has better home than us. And that something else has better resources and accommodation than us. So we're just going to take everything that they have. And we're going to be the same thing that we were so hating of that was being done to us in our homeland. We're going to do to somebody else. And we're going to justify it because we did it first. Ray J ass nigga. Now, here are the solutions that I've in my very consistent research, because I don't go get this from mainstream media. I get this from the source, which is directly out the rooster's mouths. It's interesting to see how like hyper masculinized and hyper feminized each of the political parties are. And it's almost like as a means of making our society just completely gender polarized, thinking that it really is a man versus woman situation rather than no. That's just like that's the next. Yes, there are mad issues with patriarchy, and yes, there are mad issues that are affecting women, but I'm saying that the man versus woman gender war situation was also exacerbated for the sake of political theory, or not political theory, but political performance for this past election. And what these people don't understand is that they have raised this social culture of people who think, oh my goodness, men hate women, men hate women, men hate women, men hate women. And because that was literally like the selling point for people to vote for Kamala Harris. And then now they lost, but they didn't get over blaming all of the voters. They didn't get off explaining how they lost $1.2 billion. And then, like, what's left now? Like, what's left now for all the people that you just convinced that every single man in their life actually hates them for existing? Like, they're not even going to do anything about it. So that's why it's like to y'all, and that's why I speak directly to the poor and the marginalized people, because to white people and just recently white women, politics has just been like debate games and theories and like mutual masturbation of philosophy. It has not mattered because it has not been gambling their humanity and their well-being. They've always been able to wager somebody else's for the sake of accessing a victory. So I don't believe like anything these people say, unless you know what it's like, unless your ancestors know what it's like to be slaves, unless you as an individual know what it's like to be the victim of racism. And I'm not talking about racism, you got your feelings hurt. I'm talking about racism, you're being barred from opportunity for the sake of being who you are. You're being punished for being the sake of who you are by a culture, and there's laws being put in place, legislation being written for the sake of dehumanizing you. There's some of you people have never experienced that. You just got your feelings hurt, bro, and you want to be a part of the club. So go ahead and pipe that down, bro, and go ahead and save your conversations for like a Discord chat or like a Call of Duty chat room, because you're not conscious enough or intelligent enough to hang around with the rest of us. Nah. Nah, we are finally at the conclusion. I keep on banging that in. I'm sorry. I'm very impatient. But we are finally at the conclusion of section 1. I hope you guys appreciated this because I really done put a number in this right here. But let's go ahead and get trapping. Let's go ahead and get trapping. I'm sorry. This is like, this is taking a handful of energy out of me. But I appreciate you guys for being here. And I'm sitting here thinking that this was only like 10 slides and the next 2 sections are like 30 slides each. So I know I'm screwed, but it's cool. We're going to get through it. I want to get this out to you by Christmas Day. And if I can't by Christmas Day, no, this will definitely be out by Christmas Day. I'm starting to realize it because I'm thinking I don't have work. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. But let's conclude this section here, because something about my ADHD is that anytime I'm about to finish something, I'll just like quit. I don't know what it is. It's like, oh, let me just save let me just do that little bit tomorrow, that last bit tomorrow. And then I never end up picking the inspiration to do it back again tomorrow. And then I leave it and I don't realize that I've left just full projects, 99% loading, because I just disconnected off my own Wi-Fi. So I hate you, ADHD, but it's only because it's capitalism. Let's get into this final part so you guys can go on your day. Now, failures of white supremacist Western ideological framework. It's simply racial narcissism. Like to all of white supremacy is a racial narcissism. And it's the thing. Anybody can be it. Anybody could be a racial narcissist. but only one group of people have been allowed and not held accountable in pursuing and actualizing it into our reality. That's why it's important to address them rather than say, well, everybody does it. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. I it's hard for me to want to kumbaya with white people until they actually understand these concepts. So if you're white, it's going to be very, very crucial for you to listen to this. Empathy is not some like cross-culturally like accepted phrase or understanding. Empathy for the white supremacist or the white supremacist indoctrinated mind is white feelings exist at a higher significance than black lives do. Not even equal. Like white people's ability to feel a way constitutes the same level of or more attention and backlash. Can't even say backlash, more attention than the trauma that is of a black life. Creating this unbalanced balance system puts our society as a means to say, anytime something happens to a black life, anytime something happens to a black life, it is deserving of happening. And anything, something happens to white feelings, it has to be accommodated. This is why I want us as a black people to have our own independent consciousness so we can decide what we believe the value of our lives and the value of our potential is outside of these people who will never look at us as human beings, at least as human beings equal to them. And they'll never admit this, but they never, ever, ever will look at us as equal humans to them. And it's simply because we're not. We're not equal to them. We're nothing like them, and that's why they hate us. And the only reason why you can hate somebody who's done nothing to you and you've stolen everything from is because they're better than you. Or they have something that you want and you can never have access to. And if you can't have access to it, then you won't give them access to it. And what is that? Their soul. This is why I beg black people to get into spirituality. This is why I beg Africans to get into African spirituality, because I'm telling you, the oppressor hates us as much as he does because he can't just put his hand into our body and take our soul out and consume it. He has to get us to enslave ourselves underneath believing his systems for the sake of being able to, over time, exploit our soul for as much time as possible until we hopefully aren't alive to take responsibility for it. Another failure of white supremacy is the commodification of scientific healthcare. This also ties into me saying that we aren't even ready to handle aliens. The reason why I said that is because the only reason why we're even engaging in healthcare and to the extent that we do is for the sake of creating profit through the pharmaceutical industry. Because capitalism. And we don't want to accept the fact that healthcare is a human right and human rights should not be turned into profit incentivized industries. Because now we're making drugs for the sense of not only selling them at max capacity, like we're trying to sell records, but we're also selling to get addicted consumers that can keep us increasing or at maximum level profits as long as possible until we need to find a new drug. So the pursuit isn't even healthcare anymore, because if it was healthcare, then it would be helping the people take responsibility for their healthcare so they would not need to consistently show up to the doctor. They wouldn't need to consistently get medication. They could consistently have conversations with health providers and health professionals that help them take responsibility for their unique independent journey. But if you want to create money out of that, you actually have to create some kind of interconnected ecosystem of health and wellness businesses and institutions. But if the only thing you care about is a quick buck, then you're just going to sell people faulty drugs to do test experiments on human beings of your pharmaceutical drugs that are not real. And I'm sorry, bro, like that might even get me canceled. But most of these drugs are trial drugs. Most of these drugs that you're taking for whatever psychological illness you're going through have just been created. Or there's 6 of them, and the only reason why you're taking the one you're taking is because the hospital has to take it, because it's the lowest price, because there's 12 more that are way more expensive that could probably treat you better. Or you are not going to have access to knowing because your insurance doesn't cover it. So look at that. We're gatekeeping healthcare based on access. We gatekeep healthcare based on insurance. We gatekeep healthcare based on finances. We gatekeep a human right based on all these other blocks and obstacles and attributes for the sake of making a dime every single drop of blood that exists inside a human being's body. You cannot tell me that is not a human rights violation. You cannot tell me. And the craziest part about a place like America is that if you actually appreciated the diversity instead of just hated all the people for being diverse in it, you could have so much cross-cultural sharing and networking of different types of healthcare and wellness and growth and spirituality and lifestyle. This could be the hub for the future always. This could be the hub for the future. This could be the hub for what's hot right now. This could be the hub for the collective consciousness, and then owned as a means of being able to make sure this is the Mecca for the world. But you guys don't think that big because you hate everybody who does not look like you. So they think the only thing that they can give you is exploitation and slavery. I'm sorry, like I'm just so passionate about this because I sit here and I think I had a girlfriend at one point that was telling me like, "Oh, you just need to go get a therapist and you need to go get on medication for your like ADHD or whatnot." And I sat here and said, "How is any of that gonna help me with my housing situation, which is like destroyed? How is that going to help me with recognizing the fact that the foundation, the parents that I came from, not only sabotaged any opportunity I have of taking care of myself, but have stopped me in more ways than one from being able to access independence in a way that would be legal and actually like a safe transition from the home that I came from? How is any of that going to help me get money in a world that is trying to increase prices on poor people that they're also decreasing wages from or stagnating wages on? How are any of these things of being another test subject for drugs that don't work? How is any of that going to put me in a position to where I might appreciate my life so much I don't even need drugs to cope? And that's where like we had to go separate ways, because it's just like the issue isn't that I'm like crazy. The issue is that this world is deliberately, this society is deliberately punishing poor people for the sake of pimping out a profit. And you have to be smart enough to know that, but ignorant enough to let it happen if you actually want to have some kind of success and well-being in this country. Because success, more times than not, underneath this like narcissistic capitalism, comes at the mercy of your own self-conscious. Now, the final thing, because this is also an aspect of not only conscious awareness, like consciousness, but community wellness and healthcare that extends beyond just like the individual accommodations and needs for healthcare. The colonization of, or the monopoly on religion and the colonization of spirituality, where that forced every marginalized person from a colonized land to end up funneling their truth through the great filter that is the white supremacist freaking Aryan cult. Now nobody can look at themselves or their truth or their own people for the sake, forgive me, I may be getting a little too lost here. I want to say exactly what I'm trying to say, which we can really run off right here. The whole entire world is at the mercy of believing the socially acceptable mass psychosis, joining their own group community psychosis, or being completely rejected by the world. But there is no room for people who don't have who don't have a means of submitting themselves to any of this psychosis, but still desire to serve this world, still desire to be at a student of, a child of this world that we exist on. It's it's so narcissistic. These people think so much so that they are the saviors of the world. They are the people, the chosen ones who came here to do what is right to a world that is so wrong and so demonic and so nasty and dirty, that they forget to look at their own face, at their own eyes, at their own demons, and realize that that is what is forcing them to perpetuate this destruction of the world as a means. They have to destroy the world so they can perceive themselves as saviors. They have to destroy people's communities so they can give people salvation. They have to stop people from accessing their own truth and their own self-sufficiency so they can be their God. And you can't call that spiritual, you have to call that sociopathic. And this goes all the way back into where we were talking about how conscious communities are being preyed upon and destroyed and turned into corporations. But when you don't allow the community to have access to their a spirituality that aligns with one that allows them to care for themselves, to care for the people in it, to care for them, their world. I'm telling you, man, it's you leave so many people at the mercy of not only their emotions, but their beliefs, and their beliefs that are probably built off of their fear and their lack of knowing what reality is outside of what is being fed to them. And I had to just like include this part here. Conscious communities aren't allowed to develop because they don't provide any capital for capitalism. You have to turn them all into corporations. You have to turn them all into some kind of wealth churning opportunities. And the example that I gave here was the health and wellness moms, the moms that eat bird food, thinking that they're on some kind of like, oh, we're healthier than you. We're on a trend caring for ourselves. We're on a trend respecting our bodies. We're gonna look young forever because we eat like this. We eat like 2 pieces of lettuce and like a string of cheese every day. Rather than recognizing, oh, like instead of attempting to be the next health and wellness influencer or the next fitness influencer who can sell all these new products, most of which are scams, why don't we understand and appreciate how important it is for people to be able to have access to healthcare and to be able to be accommodated by the community that they're being raised by or that is responsible for them, rather than constantly at the mercy of the people who own them, their parents probably, or the state, both of which probably can't provide them an adequate enough healthcare portfolio and protocol to where we can say, okay, everybody deserves healthcare, and then everybody is at the mercy of what healthcare they need or what healthcare they can access from that fundamental general opportunity, rather than, well, if you're not healthy because you're not eating the right bird food, you're not healthy because you're not biohacking properly, you're not healthy because you're not, and then we have a bunch of this like new age, like self-proclaimed spiritual healers type BS that people are saying to just victim blame everyday individuals who aren't being served by the government and the society that they are supposed to be dependent on. All right. Section 1 is done. Section 1 is done. I hope you guys are cool with that. This is really maybe this is just my escape from like being called a racist. But this is just my I I couldn't give you anything else in this analysis if I didn't come with this first. I'll tell you right now. I would have not been allowed to give you guys anything unless I came with this first. Because I have to show you that I'm not playing games with like the psychosis. Like I'm for real, for real. And I want my, forgive me, I want my people to be able to see beyond all the illusions for the sake of being able to meet me and to meet other people, those of us, in a grounded sense of reality. Because only then can we take steps to the future that we're trying to go into. But until then, bro, we are all cooked, bro, at the mercy of our own beliefs, our own ignorance, our own fear. So hopefully, through this process, we give ourselves an opportunity to find the unique gifts and the unique value that we have to offer to each other. And we could take steps to not only sharing that, but actualizing that into this reality. All right. Until the next section, thank you so much for being here. Hope you guys are ready for that one. Yeah, yeah.